trees can talk to each other through an ancient Otherworld underground network. This is how scientists explain how they do this. Trees talk to each other deep underground, and it's an idea still relatively new to science, but familiar to ancient beliefs. Today, scientists are confirming that forests act like one big superorganism. Below the ground, fungal highways connect the trees, and through this highway, the oldest trees nurture their young. What's more, the trees communicate and cooperate with other species. Thus, they may help each other, contrasting with the idea of selfish competition. Trees talk on the wood wide web. Yes, trees talk to each other, but how? After millions of years of evolution, starting 600 million years ago, fungi and plants formed symbiotic relationships called a mycorrhiza. Notably, the word comes from the Greek for fungus and root. Here's how it works. In exchange for sugars and carbon from trees, the fungi provide what trees require: minerals, nutrients, and a communication network. Similar to an internet connection, the mycorrhizal network underground extends through the forest. Fungal threads called hyphae create a highway and merge with tree roots. Then trees can send and receive items like these: nitrogen, sugars, carbon, phosphorus, water, defense signals, chemicals, and hormones. Please support my Patreon channel since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. My Patreon channel will have 5 different videos from my YouTube channel every day. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. Amazingly, one tree can connect to hundreds of other trees, sending out signals. Along the threads, bacteria and other microbes swap nutrients with their fungi and the tree roots. The global map of the tree network? In 2019, scientists began mapping this wood wide web on a global scale, and since then, the international study produced the first global map of the mycorrhiza fungi network, and importantly, it could be the most important and ancient social network on Earth. Mother trees protect the forest. For 3 decades, ecologist Susan Simard of the University of British Columbia in Canada studied how trees talk. After extensive experimentation, she has learned how the network she calls the Otherworld connects life in forests. Simard says, yes, trees are the foundation of forests, but a forest is much more than what you see. You see, underground, there is this other world, a world of infinite biological pathways that connect trees and allow them to communicate and allow the forest to behave as if it's a single organism. It might remind you of a sort of intelligence. Reaching out along the network, hub trees, she calls mother trees, can nurture growing saplings. When older trees die, they may bequeath their nutrients, their genes, even a kind of wisdom to others, and thus by tapping into the other world, trees gain valuable resources and insight into their surroundings. Community resilience. As a consequence, connected trees have a distinct advantage and resilience, but if you cut a tree off from the network, it becomes vulnerable. Often they succumb to diseases at much higher rates. Unfortunately, practices like clear-cutting or replacing forests with a single species decimates this intricate ecosystem. And sadly, trees that don't tap into the community network are vulnerable to disease and bugs. And as a result, harvesting becomes unsustainable. In a TED presentation, Simard says, trees talk. Through back and forth conversations, trees increase the resilience of the whole community. It probably reminds you of our own social communities and our families, well, at least some families, she said. Now, ancient beliefs in trees. Today, scientists can confirm that trees communicate in a social manner. However, the idea is not new. For example, for centuries, indigenous people of the Pacific Northwest coast, called the Tsimshian, have known that life in the forests is interconnected. Susan Simard's graduate student, Shimhaitsek Teresa Rian, is of Chimshian heritage, and in the recent New York Times piece, Rian explained how Simard's studies of mycorrhizal networks are similar to Aboriginal traditions. But European settlers were quick to dismiss these ideas. Reagan said everything is connected, absolutely everything. There are many Aboriginal groups that will tell you stories about how all the species in the forest are connected, and many will talk about below ground networks. The Menominee Forest, Rian explained how the Native American Menominee tribe sustainably harvested the 230,000-acre Menominee Forest in Wisconsin. Rather than focusing on money, they focus on ecology and are richly rewarded for it. She said, sustainability, the Menominee believe, means thinking in terms of whole systems with all their interconnections, consequences, and feedback loops. They maintain a large, old, and diverse growing stock, prioritizing the removal of low-quality and ailing trees over more vigorous ones and allowing trees to age 200 years or more so they become what Simard might call grandmothers. And by allowing old growth to continue, the forest continues to remain profitable, healthy, and densely forested even up to today. Since 1854, more than 2.3 billion board feet have been harvested, nearly twice the volume of the entire forest, yet there is now more standing timber than when logging began. The Menominee wrote in one report, "To many, our forest may seem pristine and untouched. In reality, it's one of the most intensively managed tracts of forest in the Lake States. And what if all forests were managed using the wisdom of the native tribes? Imagine the potential if forests were always sustainable rather than exploiting for short-term gains." An ancient republic. And as we learn more about the intricate work of forests, it becomes clear that there is a desperate need to change how we treat them. The razing of an old growth forest is not just the destruction of magnificent individual trees, it's the collapse of an ancient republic whose interspecies covenant of reciprocation and compromise is essential for the survival of Earth as we know it. This is what Ferris Jabber writes. Today, Sir David Attenborough and thousands of scientists believe urgent action is needed to combat the climate crisis. Forests are a fundamental component of the recovery. So rewilding the world, restoring and wisely managing forests as stewards is a top priority. Attenborough explained, "We've taken trees for granted and clearly nearly half of our planet's forests. Luckily, forests have an extraordinary ability to recover," he said. After centuries of decimating trees, it's critical to prevent ancient forests, and Attenborough calls for better farming techniques and planting more forests as part of an essential global restoration. And in return, people would have more natural forests than ever, stabilize the climate, and get all the resources we need. This is on Humans Are Free. Thank you for your support. It's from Ancient Code, reference New York Times. Humans are free. Thank you.